So, David, this is
Mhm.
your third time working with Damien as Art the Clown with All Hallows Eve, the first anthology film, then Terrifier and Terrifier 2. How did you two meet and how did your working relationship grow over the years?
Well, actually, this is my second time working with him with Art the Clown because it was his buddy Mike Gianelli that actually played Art in All Hallows Eve.
Oh, okay.
Amy and I have worked on three different films together because we also did a film that's still in production right now called Stream, and he did a lot of the practical effects for that. So, but I met Damien through the auditioning process for Terrifier. They called me in for an audition, and we hit it off right there in the room.
All right. And you're now like one of people's favorite horror clowns. Like, how does that feel for you now, knowing that Pennywise is out there? So many other horror clowns are out there,
Yeah.
and now you're just this instant cult icon.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty surreal at the same time because I'm like, to me, Pennywise is the king of the killer clowns from horror films. Of course, Joker is also the king of killer clowns just
Right.
in general. So to be on in that same cavalcade of awesomeness is pretty sweet. I can't complain.
Right. And so you guys have been doing all these horror conventions now too. What has been probably the most surreal moment you've had at one of these horror conventions that you have been doing the past several years?
I think the probably one of the most surreal moments for me was the first time someone, it was at a very first convention when someone approached me with an Art the Clown tattoo that they had gotten right there at the convention. And that was pretty special because that's even before we had debuted on Netflix. So that was the first time I'd actually seen an Art the Clown tattoo in person, and just seeing, knowing that someone loved the film that much they wanted me to be a part of their body for the rest of their lives. That was pretty surreal in itself.
Right. And now you got Terrifier 2, and it is a long movie, right? It's 2.5 hours, which is unheard of for a
Yeah.
slasher film. So when you got that to unpack, and I thought, man, this only felt like a 90-minute long movie when I was
Yeah.
watching it. Honestly, it just goes by so fast and it never feels like it drags at any point.
Hmm.
Were you and Damien just kind of bouncing off each other, like, what, we should do this here or do that there with the kills to really keep the pacing going in this movie?
Oh, definitely so. But I mean, that's more just Damien just knowing how to write a fun film. And like we would bounce ideas off of each other, but I mean, ultimately 95+% of the film is his. And he just knows how to pace something really well. And really, I there's stuff that we originally intended to put in the film, and we just didn't have time to get to it. So the film could have been like 3 hours long, which is insane to think. He tried to pare it down as much as he could, but he got down to where it is now, and he's like, "There's no way he could cut anything else out of it without impacting the plot." It's like, well, let's just keep it as it is then. It's like the important thing is we keep the audience entertained, and if we do, they're not going to feel like it's a 2+ hour movie. I mean, you look at how a lot of the Marvel films are now, they're most of them are approaching the 3 hour mark. You have the Batman that came out earlier this year that was about the 3 hour mark. So, if you can have action movies and comic book movies reaching that, time frame, why can't we do that with slashers? Just as long as you keep the audience engaged and they're having fun, then yeah, that's going to be totally fine to do, I think.
And you got two epitomes like backing you guys, like Bloody Disgusting backing you guys on Terrifier 2. Like they're the epitome of horror and journalism in
Yeah.
themselves. So how was it like having Bloody Disgusting back you guys and now Fathom Events releasing you in 700 theaters nationwide? That has to be exciting on both aspects of that.
Oh my gosh, definitely so. I mean, like Bloody Disgusting was with us from the beginning with Terrifier 1. Like when we first came out, they were one of the first people getting the word out about our film before, when we were just on basic streaming platforms and, Blu-rays before we were on Netflix. They were letting people know. So it's really cool having them in our corner officially now, and they've done wonders for us. So they've, you know, surpassed our expectations. We didn't expect to have this in theaters, and now that we're having all these, you know, we're in over 700 theaters nationwide, especially with Fathom events. That's really cool. I'm like, yeah, I'm happy. I'm also an AMC ape, so I'm really happy to see us in AMC theater. So I'm like, ooga fucking booga there.
You know what? I'm an AMC diehard myself. So,
Yeah. Yeah, take
so
that, King Griffin. Art's coming for you, asshole.
speaking of that, you know, I got to bring up my good buddy Billy Pond and his
Oh yeah.
popcorn. Because you
Oh
guys
yeah.
have this friendly beef online about popcorn and Art the Clown.
Yes.
And it's just so hilarious to watch online.
Oh, it's
So,
great.
so if you could get a chance to battle popcorn at a film, of course, who do you think would, how do you think that matchup could go?
Oh gosh, I mean, that would be one of the most sick and depraved battles you could probably have, because both of these guys are so messed up in the head. I mean, of course, Art would ultimately win because Popcorn's merely human. Art's not,
Right.
as you can see in part two, even at the end of part one. So, I think at some point there would be a mutual respect between the two of them, and so the fight would end. They're like, okay, you're pretty freaking cool. Let's do this. Let's go on a joyride together.
Yeah, and then you can kind of get like the devil rejects of clown movies if those two ever paired
Yeah,
up, right?
that would be incredible. Road trip with killer clowns. That would be so much fun.
So, one final question I wanted to ask you too. How did the concept, I guess this came from Damien, but Art is so menacing just being a mute clown, you know, not
Mhm.
having any line, not having any dialogue. He's just brute force all the way. Do you find that more menacing and more tension building in films other than clowns that do have a lot of dialogue, like Pennywise, that can sometimes just be comical or over the top one liners? How do you feel that Art compares or doesn't compare so well or takes his own spin on the genre as well?
Yeah, I think that definitely makes him a little bit more menacing, because it's not just that he doesn't speak. There's no sounds that come out of him. You don't hear him breathing. I mean, you even hear Mike Myers and Jason Voorhees breathe or grunt, but like Art gets hit, he screams, but there's no sound coming out. So I think it's so, you know, inhuman. And I think that just ups the creepy factor of him. And he was, you know, when you have clowns doing one liners and stuff like that, I mean, I think that takes a little bit the scariness out of them too. But so I think that's why it works. I think it works very well. And he was kind of created to be the opposite of Pennywise in that regard. I mean, like everything, you know, like Pennywise got hair, Art's bald, Pennywise is very colorful, Art's black and white. Pennywise, you know, doesn't use props, Art does. That's so it's a fun balance there. So you have different types of killer clowns. They're not all the same.
All right, David, thank you so much for joining us at Infamous Horrors tonight. It's been really fun and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been great chatting with you too, AJ.